At first, I
Thank you.
really want to, talk about fear and depression because
Fear and depression.
that happens a lot nowadays, right? Especially in this pandemic. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel a little bit uncomfortable when people around me get that depression, and I don't know how to make them feel better.
Yeah. I kind of look at things like martial arts, right? Like you don't follow the fish, you follow the river. You understand what I mean? You look at where things are going. Everything happens in patterns. Um, that's documented in science and also in Taoism. We talk about like I Ching and stuff like that. Everything happens in pattern. Fighting is the same. Everything happens in patterns. That is just the nature of human behavior, right? You see that in criminology. You see that in sociology, which is the backbone of martial arts, studying these behaviors. So everything happened in patterns. So I look at a pandemic in the same way. Like for me, and I can only speak for myself. It's like I like the idea that a crisis doesn't matter what it is. In this case, the pandemic, it highlights the weakness of your lifestyle.
Hmm.
So you have a challenge in front of you, all this pain. Like right now, drug overdose is going up, alcoholism is going up, domestic violence is going up, bankruptcy is going up. Everything is going up over a pandemic that's killing about what 4% of the population. There's a little bit of imbalance there. So when you're confronted with these challenges and pain, that's all you can see. But from a Kungfu point of view, you don't want to follow the fish, you want to follow the river. So if you look at from that point of view, what is really bothering you with this pandemic? What does it highlight in your life that's the weakness of your lifestyle, right? So for some people, it's like, hey man, I spent all my eggs developing a land business. And now the pandemic come, I have to close it, so I'm bankrupt. Um, I realize that when I'm alone, I don't know how to spend time by myself, and I'm very socially isolated, and I'm not capable of being alone. So these are some of the things that are highlighted during the pandemic. So you can go, okay, let's see how we can solve the pandemic. That's really good. But then the next thing that happens in your life, maybe 5 years from now, another pandemic, or 10 years from now, another crisis, these issues that you didn't solve will happen again. So maybe another way you can approach it is, oh, I have a problem where I don't know how to spend time alone, 80/20, for example, because no one can be completely alone. Maybe I can solve that problem. And if you solve that problem, then the next pandemic won't bother you with that same issue. Or maybe all I have is a land business. So now you develop an online business. The next time that it happens, this financial crisis won't hit you as hard. So I kind of look at it like Kung Fu. Anytime somebody hits you, you have to ask yourself, how the heck did he get his hand there? Correct the mistake, right? But if all you worry about is what's in front of you,
Yeah.
you're gonna repeat the same pattern. Now that is condescending in the sense that, like, look, man, I can barely survive what's in front of me. How can I look farther than that? So I'm not saying that everyone's in a place to do that, and I'm not trying to be condescending, but I'm saying if you have the wiggle room, definitely apply your Kung Fu principle, which is don't look at the fish, look at the river.
Yeah, like, but because the thing is, like let's say me for example, right? Of course, I cannot speak for everyone, but
Yeah.
like in the pandemic, like a lot of things changed to my life, and those changes happen like drastically. It's like in just like the day after, and then they decide to lock down everything, right?
Right.
So I have to, instead of like going to you guys training kung fu, we go have fun and then talk about kung fu and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Now I have to like stay home like 24 hours a day. I'm fine with like spending time with myself, like I can do solo training and stuff, but it never be the same as I come to class and
Never.
see you guys, right?
But healing is not about. It's about reducing suffering. It's kind of like when you're in a hospital, everyone's gonna die. All of us is gonna die. So why do we bother healing people?
Hmm.
To reduce suffering, to increase the quality of life, not die, right? So I was stuck in Hong Kong for 2 years and I didn't have a training partner. This was about 12 years ago. I had to develop a way to train solo by myself without decreasing skill. This was a huge challenge to me because I didn't know how to do that, right? So I came up with a method to do that. When I came back to Canada, to my surprise, I didn't lose any skill that I had. So now I developed a solo training method. That's an example of how a bad situation taught me how to solve a problem, right?
Hmm.
That's adaptability. Evolution, by definition, means an organism that has adapted to its environment. You adapt to the stimulus. And the first step of that is you have to accept the stimulus,
Hmm.
right? If you do, because people talk like in Kung Fu, we talk about what's the most important thing, yin and yang. Okay, what's a good yang quality? Fire quality, hard quality, directness. Make sure your stuff is direct. Don't waste motion, right? Then the yin quality, flow, sensitivity, being relaxed. That's important. But what's more important than these two things is adaptability. And the first thing we do when we're confronted by a crisis, when our reptilian brain fires, is we're threatened, which is by definition fear and anger. And the first thing we do is we react to the immediate threat. Get rid of it. I don't want to look at it. Go away. Get away from me. I don't like this pain. But now you're talking about the immediate, right? That's not adaptation. Adaptation, besides dealing with the present, is to deal with the whole spectrum, the whole pattern. So you have to get into an adaptive mindset. If you haven't been raised like that, intellectually, philosophically, psychologically, then you're not going to see this. You're just going to debate it in your mind whether it's true. Or you're going to place it on a pedestal. Like, only successful people can do that. But if you have it in your nervous system, you don't even have to think about it. You have been trained to adapt. Then that is your knee-jerk reflex now. You don't have to think about it. And that's the beauty of martial art if you've been training to adapt, which is, I know everyone talks about it, but do you really do it?
But because the adaptation is probably a very important point. But I don't know. Like instead of feeling like fear and stuff, right? When I actually in this pandemic, like after a couple of weeks when they first locked out, I feel like, oh shit, I have a lot of time for myself now. I never had that because like I'm always working and training and studying. There's just so much stuff, right? So now I have time for myself. I'm like, okay, let's build a training program. Let's build this YouTube channel. I have more stuff to do. But when I look at, for example, like my girlfriend, right, and my friends, they always like oh, like it's gonna kill me. COVID gonna kill me. I don't want to go out. I just like they just stop living their life, right? And
Normally, you push towards me, right?
yes,
That's a threat. Okay, so your reptilian brain goes, push, get away from me, get away from me. This is gonna kill me. Push harder, and what happens?
oh yeah,
But what if I accept it?
yeah.
Now it's not this. Now it's like, okay, I'm gonna adapt to this. You push, I accept it and I take it and I own it, right? That's not intellectual though. If I have to think about it, what happens? Should I go left? Should I go right? Push. Should I go left? Should I go? Well, it's over. I'm already here. You can't think. That's why art is important, not just martial art. It teaches you how to adapt. So this is a stimulus. You must adapt, which means I must accept. If I don't accept it, push, it's not happening. It's not happening.
Yeah.
No, it's happening. But people don't do that, right? They get hit in the face. What do? They say, it's not my fault. Why did you hit me? How does that help me?
Yeah.
Why are you hitting me? You should not be hitting me. You're wrong. I'm right. I'm right. I'm right. Bang. No, get the hell out of the way. Talk later. Think later. Adapt to this first. Right?
Yeah, but
Adapt first, talk later.
yeah. Like, but I feel like the ability to adapt, right? Like it's very important in any aspect of life, in any art too. But for example, like in martial art, you emphasize that a lot. But when you look at
it's not me, man. It's the art. I take no credit for it. Zero credit.
You always said that, like every time, like let's say when I first met you and then I changed myself, I become much more adaptive. I become less fear, less depression.
That's because you're smart.
You always no, it's not because I'm smart. I'm just a dumb kung fu guy, just like you. But
That's right.
the thing is, you never take credit from that. You always said that like the art changed me.
That
So
stopped changing. It was here before I was born, be here after I die. So how can I take any credit? I'm just a passenger passing by, right?
yeah, but let's say for example, right? Because like the way you think, that you just talk about adaptation. Everybody know about adaptation.
Yeah, but it's not neural. They're thinking about it. That's why it's not going to work. The problem with philosophy is it's like a self-help calendar, right? You get in your back pocket. Okay, you're reading this, all these memes and self-help quotes and all this stuff. Beautiful. But when someone punches you in the head, it's a tenth of a second. It's like lightning. Do you have time to get out your self-help calendar? Look at it and say, okay, which quote will help me deal with this life problem? It's happening too fast. Life don't care about you. Life goes fast. The world turns. It doesn't care. You can't stop the world from turning so you can think, right?
Yeah.
So if your philosophy is based on thinking, problem. When you train, you think. You design a good training program before you get on the floor. And then you get on the floor, you train. You don't think. Then after the game is over, you get off the floor and you think, you reassess. Well, it's kind of the same, right? Yeah, sure, thinking is good. Philosophy is good. Psychology is good. Sociology is good. Think. Have a game plan. All good. I'm not saying it's not good. But you got to transfer that knowledge into your nerves, into your nervous system, until you don't have to think about it. The most powerful thing in the universe is habits, because it's unconscious. But it's a two-way street. It's a double-edged sword. You get a bad habit, oh, woo!
Okay.
You get a good habit. So adaptation has to be a habit. If it's just a philosophy, now you're back to intellectual stuff, right? Then that's not going to help. So you need to give people tools to deal with fear and anger. Tools. Philosophy, great. Let's talk about the philosophy. Why does it work? Okay, let's rip it apart and go, this is why it worked. But first give them something that worked. It's like the Dalai Lama said, someone shoot an arrow in you, right? Are you going to sit there and go, okay, who shot this? Who was it? Where was he standing? What angle? And you don't care. You're like, just get rid of this. Stop the bleeding. Get the arrow out. Stop the infection. Then we'll talk about who the heck did this. Let's arrest the person, right? Later. But first, get rid of this. So when someone is angry and they're in reptilian brain mode, how do you get them out of this and back to frontal cortex? Breathing, posture, visualization. There's a lot of tools, right? Yeah, tools. Just like a minute ago, you push me. If I start thinking, okay, why is Jay pushing me? What did I do to him? Why is he so pissed off at me? Why is he so strong? Should I go left? Should I go right? It's over.
Yeah.
But teach them how to do the thing first. And then later go, hey, why did that work? Hey, Jay, why did this work? Can you explain it to me? And you go, oh, there's a reason why it worked is you align your bones and blah, 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 blah. Later. You want to help people? Give them tools to deal with their emotions. Because 80% of your decision comes from your emotions, not your intellect. I wish it was just intellect. We'll just buy a big self-help book and we're all good to go, right? No. Like Buddhism, right? Yeah, you can read the canyons of Buddhist scripture. But the Buddha didn't get enlightenment from reading. How did you get enlightenment? He meditated for 9 years under a tree. Bang! Had a breakthrough, right?
Yeah. But I mean, even Buddha still like kind of, like at its end of his career, it's still like, I kind of waste my career.
Yeah, it was kind of like, Lao Tzu, the Taoist guy, and the painting of him on the ox, he was leaving town. Man, that says a lot. But that's a different podcast, because now we're talking about refusal of the return, which is a big thing in psychology and mythology. But back to this, you got to learn to deal with the emotions, right? This is a physical thing, right?